Okay, we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, downtown Columbia. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. That's how you can reach us here on this Friday night. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes with you. Don't forget, tomorrow I'll be covering USC and Florida over at the Colonial Life Arena. You can follow on Twitter at SportsTalkSC and our post-game coverage on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. Make sure you check that out. Let's give you a few recruiting notes here on this Friday night, beginning with a possibility for one of those openings in the USC class for 2018. Rice graduate transfer safety J.T. eBay. It's spelled I-B-E, pronounced eBay. 6 feet 200, has been in touch with Muschamp and defensive coordinator Travaris Robinson. He redshirted as a freshman at Rice, played the last 3 seasons. Program changed coaches after a 1-11 record last season. He decided to pursue graduate studies elsewhere for his final year of eligibility. He's narrowed his list to USC, Iowa State, and Indiana. He was at Iowa State last weekend, Indiana this weekend. USC wants him to visit for a spring practice, which starts February 28th, and he said he's willing to wait to visit the Gamecocks before he makes a decision. He said he wants to play on a bigger stage and prove himself a little more. He's talked to Muschamp and Robinson. They say that he's a player with experience. He can come in if he's better than the guys, he said, and come in and play right away. And this is interesting. He feels like, this is eBay talking about Muschamp, he feels like they are trying to win an SEC championship, and they need to do that right away. eBay said he's not all that familiar with the program, but he is familiar with Muschamp and Robinson's resumes of putting players in the NFL. He is a native of Mansfield, Texas. He had an offer from Minnesota as well before choosing Rice, where he started 17 games over 3 seasons. Last season, 42 tackles, 3 passes broken up. He also had 42 tackles as a sophomore and 37 as a redshirt freshman. He also was named to the Conference USA Honor Roll the last 3 years, and he won the Iron Owl Award for his weight room work last year. You are just dying to say something, so go ahead.
I want to know who else is bidding for eBay. I just want to know who else is bidding for eBay.
If he picks the Gamecocks, I will work that into the – but nobody will get it because they don't know how his name is pronounced. If you look at IBE, you wouldn't think it's pronounced eBay.
You could see that my wheels were motion. I wanted the best eBay joke
you were
possible.
About to eat the microphone. You just wanted to say something.
And I guess being a Rice student, he'll help out the GPA as well.
I would say so.
Honor roll guy.
He wants to his major is kinesiology.
Do we have that here?
Yeah.
We?
Do we have that in this town?
Yes.
We?
Do we have that at South Carolina?
Did I hear the word we? Gamecock fans? Did he just say we?
I'm saying, do we have that here? We are in the town, aren't we?
They might have it. We don't.
Why you got to start stuff? Why you got to be a stuff starter?
There you go. I knew at some point in time it would slip out. Your true fandom is coming through.
It's not at all the case.
A little more.
I'm Tiger Will. You remember that?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. A
little more on the recent offer by Clemson to safety Louis Sine, 6'2", 170, Everett, Massachusetts. Some of his other offers: Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, Florida, Georgia, Nebraska, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia Tech, and others. USC offered 2020 linebacker Devon Betty of Fort Lauderdale. Kentucky, Ohio State, Oklahoma, some of his other offers. And Clemson targets in basketball, 6'3" Trey McGowans of Hargrave Prep, Virginia, was offered by Virginia Tech and Baylor. And some more South Carolina signees for Limestone: defensive lineman Dante Johnson of Dutch Fork, defensive end Savrind Musgrove, Battery Creek, defensive lineman Adrian Briscoe, Spartanburg, linebacker Jaquavius Davis, Nation Ford, defensive lineman Josh Villegas of Spartanburg, and defensive lineman Shamari Williams from York. There you go with the recruiting for now as we head into the weekend. Remember to check out our recruiting information regularly on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and on Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting. Now, Clemson wrapped up another successful recruiting campaign on Wednesday. Dabo Swinney met with the media. But you know what? Not only did they do well bringing in new talent, they did well retaining old talent. How did Dabo pull that off?
It was interesting to see the first time Dabo talking about the 3 defensive linemen returning and offensive lineman Mitch Hyatt coming back. He said it comes down to a simple grading issue.
There's a lot of rhetoric that gets created in that process for these people. And whether it's this.com or this person who is putting out his mock draft and they got this person at this pick. And well, guess what? That person doesn't own a team. He don't get a pick and has no influence either. But yet that gets put out there and it's this machine. And if you're not really educated in the process, you can make some bad decisions on bad information. And so for us, we try to do a great job, and we have unbelievable communication. Woody does an amazing job of kind of managing that with all the NFL people, he and Jeff Davis. And, Woody's got great relationships with all these people, and we just want to give our guys good information. And, whatever they decide to do, that's what they got to decide to do. And but make a decision based on reality. And here's it's coming from the people who run the league. People who are, this is their business. So the bottom line is they didn't get the grade they wanted. Clee and Christian both got second round grades, and I think they had a real decision to make. But they're like, I'm like, listen, if you go, this is where you are. And, we had several people get on the phone with them, different people, to kind of give them the same information to help them. And, their goal is to be a no doubt first rounder. And so, they made the decision to come back, and, that's their reason. Simple as that. I think if they'd gotten first round grades from the NFL committee, they would have gone, but they didn't. Got second round, and here's the reasons why. So I think both those guys are highly motivated to come back and have great years. And then Mitch, I think he got like a third round grade, and Austin was kind of right in there too. And Mitch just kind of thought about it for about 30 seconds and said, "Well, I'm coming back." And Austin, I think, had a little deeper decision on it, but it is what it is. And so I know this, I was saving scholarships for them. That's for sure. I was going to make sure they had an opportunity to stay here if they wanted to. And just glad that those guys stayed. And then we've got, we had 3 guys decide to leave. And again, guys make their decisions. Ray, that they give you a first round, second round, stay in school. This is what they tell you. And sometimes guys get stay in school grade, but they choose to leave, and they have their own decisions. And again, my whole thing is just making sure that they truly understand their situation, the reality of the decision, the possibilities, and as long as they're at peace with all that, and hey man, you support them.
Now, I'm not trying to say that Dabo and Clemson were disingenuous toward these kids, but
now be careful what you say here.
Why are we hearing all of this about how Cleveland and Christian were no doubt first rounders from the public, and yet they got something different from the NFL? Like, who's putting out that they were first round guys, and yet they're getting different information? I'm wondering why we're getting misinformation in the public.
He set the stage for that. He said there's a lot of stuff out there from people.
What I'm saying, but where are they getting that from? Where are they getting that from?
Who knows? It's the internet. It's Twitter. Anybody can put anything out there about anybody and anything. And he says the NFL told these guys this, and this, and that's what they made their decision on. Now, you know what? I take him at his word. I have no reason not to believe him. But I don't think he would stand up here and mislead everybody.
Would you not say it's in his best interest to have them back in school?
Well, of course. I mean, he wants to have his best players, but he left it, according to him, it was the players who made the decision, not him.
Yeah.
And if they got grades
of information that they got from him and his staff, I'm not trying to say that was being disingenuous.
I'm saying that, I don't know how it works. Do the players talk to NFL people, or do the coaches relay information to them?
Can't they talk to NFL people? I think they give them.
I think if a player was given information by a coach, or his staff support people and it wasn't the correct information from the NFL, word would get back to that player through an agent or somebody.
But they can't
your
retain
coaches are giving you wrong information.
They can't retain an agent.
But you can talk to an agent.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Back we are, 800-956-7266 is the number. So going back to what we were talking about.
It's funny, on Twitter, we have this again. Last time I did this, this guy says on Twitter, for the guy questioning Dabo, he clearly doesn't know Dabo and what kind of man he is.
Yeah, you question his character.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what
my character, sir.
Is that what I'm doing?
What I want to say here is that, first of all, we don't know, okay? We're on the outside. You can make all kind of conjecture that you want. I happen to think that Dabo Swinney is a truth teller and a straightforward kind of guy. And I think that if he's had players leave before when they've gotten first round grades back from the NFL people.
Right.
So it's not like he has tried to shun all his players from that.
Absolutely
He
not.
has certainly provided the players with the accurate information. I think if he says the grades they got back, we're talking about those defensive linemen, Wilkins and Farrell and Bryan in particular. If they got back grades that were lower than what they had hoped for, and they shared that information with those players, and from that, the players made the decision to come back, then I believe that's what happened. Now, the fact that you got mock drafts and speculation and things of that nature plugging Clemson players into here, I mean, we saw them. They had what? Wilkins and Farrell going in the first round,
Exactly.
some of these mock drafts.
And again,
but, I mean, who are these people? And what do they know, and where are they getting their information?
I'm not trying to sit here and say that Dabo would be disingenuous. All I'm saying is, number one, it's in Dabo's best interest to have these guys back. And number two, the way this works a lot of times is that the NFL will reach out to a coach. Now, a coach can do either one of two things. He can lobby for a player to go for a team, or he could say, you know what, talk to the player directly. Dabo is saying talk to the player directly. A lot of other coaches in college football will lobby for their player to be basically saying this to the scouts, because a lot of times the NFL guys don't know. All they know is what their scouts are telling them. But when you talk to the coaches could either do one of two things. They could say, well, I don't know if he's ready, or I don't know if he's this or that or here and there. And I'm not saying that Dabo would intentionally try to sabotage any one of his players. All I'm saying is it's in Dabo's best interest to have those guys back another year.
Well, here's the key point. And people have to remember this. It only takes one team.
Of course.
Only takes one team. As I said before, I can talk about the team I know, the Atlanta Falcons and Keanu Neal, which people just screamed a couple of years ago that why would they reach for this guy? Well, Dan Quinn had worked with Will Muschamp. He was the defensive coordinator at Florida under Will Muschamp. He was on the early stages of recruiting O'Neal and knew the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I need a hard-hitting safety now. And he, talked to Will and some other people at Florida, will say, I know this kid. That's my guy. I don't care what anybody say. I'm reaching. I'm getting this guy. Phil, you remember back in the 80s, everybody thought Jeff Bryant was a second or third round pick.
Mm-hmm.
The Seahawks took him 6th in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And he had, a 10-year career with Seattle because one team saw things in him that other teams didn't. So don't tell me those tackles, they go to the combines, they go to other things. Those guys wouldn't be number one picks.
And I'm not saying that the information that we got was overwhelming, but we saw a lot of these drafts, a lot of these mock drafts that had them in the first round or early second round. Now, again, the interpretation that they get from the league could be a little bit different from again, whether it's a first round grade, a second round grade, or a stay in school grade. Whether you take the stock of those or not, all I'm saying is we had enough information that's out there. And again, whether Dabo says it's rhetoric or not, whatever, a lot of this stuff does come to pass.
You know what? It's like you said, it only takes one team. Well, all that matters is what the player believes.
There you go.
And he can open the internet up and he can see ESPN's mock draft. He can see CBSSports.com mock draft and see his name in there. But when he gets it from the NFL themselves, from the NFL scouts or whoever he's talking to, and they say, look, you might be late first round, somewhere in the second round. If that's the grades you get and you're Christian Wilkins and you're thinking, well, you know what, I can do better than that. I can come back for my senior year and become a top 10 pick. If I have a great senior year, which I expect to have, I'm willing to take that chance. Plus, of course, they're all getting the NCAA insurance for multiple millions of dollars to guard against career-ending injury. So it's not like they're throwing everything to the wind. I mean, if they happen to have career-ending injuries, they're going to make, several $1 million from those policies. Now, you can have, unfortunately, it could be like a Marcus Lattimore situation where you don't have a career-ending injury, but you have a career-altering injury.
Yeah.
And that can take you way on down the ladder there. So you hope that doesn't happen. I'm just saying that to doubt what Dabo is saying, and to think there's some conspiracy there to mislead his players is faulty.
No,
It's very faulty thinking.
I'm not saying that. I'm just thinking of the ancillary things about knowing in looking and observing the draft that those guys would be number one picks. Here's the other key point, and you saw it with Clowney. If you come back, and Clowney had to come back because it was his third year, they start to nitpick every little thing you do and downgrade you for silly things that has nothing to do with what you playing the position, which is another thing mentally you have to get over, especially in this age of Twitter and everything else. Also in the first round of the draft, if there's a run on players at your position, then you become a premium on that night because people get desperate. Wait a minute, I got to get a tackle because everybody's taking defensive tackles in the upper part of the round. We're going to take you in the middle of the first round.
Well, think about also the way that their season ended, though, against Alabama. All four of those guys didn't have very good games, whether it's Bryant, Farrell, Wilkins, or even Mitch Hyatt.
Clemson only gave up 200 and something yards.
But they were getting completely mauled on the line of scrimmage from both sides.
The offense turned it over and gave Alabama short fields. But you're not going to gauge those players or any player just based on one game
against guys who are going to be in the league, like guys who played Alabama.
Now, I don't claim to be a talent scout by any means, but having watched Christian Wilkins and Cleveland Farrell,
they had bad days.
I'm surprised that their NFL grades apparently came back as low as they did. Because in my mind, from watching them through their careers, they got first round written all over them. And Austin Bryant's not far behind from what I can tell. And I was a little surprised about Mitch Hyatt. Of course, maybe, again, I don't claim to be an NFL general manager or anything like that. They all look like NFL type players to me. And I was a little surprised. But the grades are what they apparently are, and they made the decision to come back for another year. So that's a huge bonus for Clemson. You look at the 2019 draft now, if everything goes to plan, you could have 4 Clemson defensive linemen taken in the first round when you throw Dexter Lawrence into the mix, who might be, if he has that monster year expected of him, he could be the top player taken in the draft in 2019 if somebody with the number 1 pick needs a dominating defensive lineman.
I'm not saying that I'm not accusing Dabo of being disingenuous. I'm saying you open yourself to that kind of criticism when you have all the information that's been out there that we saw about those guys being potential first rounders and having them come back. And, that's something obviously that he's refuting. And I'm not saying he's wrong to do that. He was about as transparent about the process as he could be. But at the same time, you open yourself to that kind of criticism when those guys do come back.
Look, that stuff's out there for the sports fan to consume and talk about. You can believe it or not. It's like rankings.
It's like bracketology.
It's like star rankings. Well, I actually, Joe Lunardi is more often on the number than he is off. I pretty much trust what he says. It's like looking at the star rankings for players and presuming that just because a guy is a 2-star or a 3-star, that he's not going to be a winner for you in football, which is an unfair thing to do, just like it is to presume that a guy who's ranked a 5-star is going to come in and be an All-American. It's somebody's opinion who has watched these players a time or two, and they form that opinion. And the same thing with these mock drafts. I mean, these aren't actual NFL GMs. These are sports writers doing this, and they're guessing or they're using information from their contacts to try to form these mock drafts, which don't absolutely reflect the feelings of NFL GMs. Back in a moment. we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Going to hear from a couple of Gamecocks, Silva and Holden, coming up in just a moment. Let's go to, yes.
How does Rhode Island outdraw Clemson on a Friday night?
It's a good question. How do you know they outdrew them?
Because it looks like there's more people in the building.
But, I mean, maybe
Rhode
the
Island.
place only seats 5,000.
Looks like there's more people in the building than there were in the building for Clemson last
You know,
night.
UConn's arena only seats 6,000 at Stores.
Yeah, that's why they play
It's
a
a
lot of their
small
games in
building.
Hartford.
They're big games.
Yeah.
Used to play a lot of their big games. We go to Lee in Florence. Hello, Lee. Welcome into Sports Talk on this Friday night. How are you? Hello, Lee. Are you there?
Lee
going once,
No, Lee?
twice.
Lee left us. Okay.
7,657 seat multi-purpose arena in Kingston, Rhode Island.
So if
Ryan
it's full, I mean, Clemson, they announced 72
Center.
something last
They were
night.
not 72 in that building last night.
We trying Lee again?
How did Rhode Island's football team do last year?
Not sure.
The Rhode Island Rams
Not
produced Lamar Odom, right? Didn't he come out of Rhode Island?
One and done.
Was he a one and done there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to Lee. All right. We got Lee again. Lee, give you another swing at it. Go ahead, my man.
Something's wrong with the phone today. How y'all doing tonight?
Good.
I really enjoyed the show. Good question for you. Didn't they pass a salary cap for rookies in the first year? Alshon signed his biggest contract this year. He's 3 years in. Why would they want to wait to go to the NFL when you can get second round money and you don't and prove yourself that you're worth the money, and then you're going to get paid anyway?
It's a rookie wage scale, basically, is how it works. And the way the rookie contracts work is you get what amounts to basically being a 4-year deal with a 5th-year option, which is kind of backloaded on the back end. It's a team option. So a lot of that money comes either up front with the signing bonus and then on the back end with that 5th-year option.
Aren't you slotted based on when you're picked? So the number one pick is going to get
the
biggest bonus,
depending on what
and
position.
then on down.
It's all a predetermined amount, though.
Right,
before the
but now you're right,
start.
though. I mean, that's why a lot of guys go ahead and jump so they can get that first contract done, and then if they're a good player, they can cash in on that second contract.
Yeah, Alshon just got paid this year, and then he just wins the Super Bowl. So it might pay him to go ahead. And the next question would be, with the new recruiting class they got coming in, the Xavier kid from Florence, how's they going to get any playing time when you got 4 starters coming back?
They're not.
No, they'll get some snaps. First game of the year.
They play Furman.
Yeah, the first game of the year, they'll get some work in there, I'm sure. Then they go play Texas A&M, and we'll see how the snaps are divvied out. But that's a beautiful thing if you're Brent Venables and the defensive line coaches. I mean, you can spell your starters even more if these guys can hold up their end of the bargain. If they're as good as anticipated coming out of the high school ranks, if they're ready, you can give them some work and spell those frontline guys. If they're not ready, you don't have to rush them. And plus, these players, we're talking about Henry and Thomas and Maskell, they don't have to feel like the world is on their shoulders and they've got to go in there and carry the load. They can learn at their own pace now.
And the other part of this is Dabo loves to play a lot of guys. We know that, at least going back the last couple of years, especially if he has guys who are ready to play. And like you said, the newly minted $2 million man, I'm sure will find ways to get all those guys in.
And also that really generates your team for a championship run because those guys are fresher down the stretch, because Clemson's not been playing a 12-game season. They've been playing, 14, 50 games.
Well, with the schedule they're looking at in 2018, there's going to be plenty of rest time available, I think, for those frontline guys. Hey, thanks for your phone call. Really appreciate it. 800-956-7266. USC basketball getting ready for Florida tomorrow, a team the Gamecocks beat earlier in the year in Gainesville, quite surprisingly. And Florida is, they're kind of having an up and down year. Win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose a game. Lost to Alabama on the 3rd, beat LSU on the 7th, and now they're coming to play at South Carolina on Saturday at noon. Gamecocks in the midst of a 4-game slide. You were over there with the players today, and they got to be very concerned about where this season is headed, and also thinking about what can I, as an individual player, do in conjunction with my teammates to turn this thing around.
Yeah, it's a rough stretch that starts here with Florida, and then Tennessee and Auburn still to come in the next couple of weeks. So this could be the real 3-game stretch that either defines or possibly breaks this Gamecock season down. I had a chance to sit down with both Chris Silva and Corey Holden earlier today at Carolina Coliseum.
You guys go into this game with any specific confidence, knowing you've played and beaten Florida before this season?
Sure. We're going the confidence we always got when we get to a game. Try to get to doing what we doing best. Try to apply what we do in practice.
What is it about this matchup that kind of maybe brings out the best in you guys? You guys play for Florida, or what is it that you guys do that kind of gives them problems?
Guarding the ball. Last time we played them, I know West did a really good job guarding the point guard Chioza because he's fast. That's not an easy job. I give him a lot of credit for that.
I think West can get his confidence back. I mean, he had a great game against Florida the last time. Since then he's been a little up and down. Can he get some confidence back? And how's he looked in practice? I guess the last couple of days.
All the guys look good. We all came ready to practice. Get better. But I think guarding the ball was a really big part in practice. The really big thing they did. They're improving it. I think they got better on it.
How was it kind of a free feeling the last time you played them? Because the perimeter shots you guys made really opened up the lane for you. You didn't get a bunch of double teams. What was that like maybe the last 10, 15 minutes of that game?
I just try to take whatever was there, the guys were making shots, so I wasn't feeling pressure to force the basket or anything. So anytime there was try to double, I was just kicking out, and the guys was just making shots.
Corey, as far as the time that you spent on the sideline, was it more of a mental barrier you had to break more than the physical?
It was a little bit of both. I was still having a little bit of pain when I was running and stuff, so that was bothering me. But it was stuff that I could push through enough to go through warm-ups. I just wasn't comfortable enough to get out there and move laterally and stuff like that.
Was it kind of tough first time out there to kind of get your air underneath you just in a game setting?
Games is definitely different than practice. Being in practice, I only practiced maybe twice before my first game, so it was just trying to get enough reps so I can catch my breath. Again, and the game's completely different when you're going up and down the way we were and the way we guard. So, definitely just getting back in shape is a big thing for me right now.
What did you learn sitting on the sideline, watching this team kind of not necessarily from afar, but just not playing? What did you learn?
I saw how good we can be. I saw how bad we can be, but I know that we come together as a team and just get back to playing Frank Martin, South Carolina basketball. We can be good, and we know going into every game we can play with anybody if we just play how we know we're supposed to play.
All right, the Gamecocks in Florida coming up tomorrow at noon. South Carolina struggling, 4-game losing streak, 13-11. Florida 16-8, 7-4 in the league. The Gamecocks are 4-7. The Gamecocks scoring average down to 70. Florida averaging 78. Gamecocks are under 40% from the floor, just barely, 0.399. Florida shooting it at 43.5%. The Gamecocks defensively allowing 43% from the floor, so not as good as Frank Martin would want. The Gamecocks only 69% from the line, so they're, even though Silva's having a good year from the line, they're still not a good free throw shooting team overall. Trying to find something positive to say here. They are out rebounding their opponents by about 5 per game, so that's good. But they turn it over more, and that is not good. So
for some reason, the last couple of games, the defensive intensity just has not been there.
Boom. That's it.
I think that's the main issue. They need to go back to what they hang their hat on, which is their defense.
Making shots would help. I mean, except for a rare exception, this has not been a good shooting team.
It hasn't been, but at the same time, you let your defense dictate your offense better, you can get things going.
Okay, we'll be back. 800-956-7266 is the phone number.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
One quick correction in talking about the Gamecocks and turnovers, they actually turned less than their opponents, but when compared to Florida, Florida is one of the best in the country at not having turnovers, allowing just 10 turnovers per game. I think that's 8th best in the country. So the Gamecocks, 15 turnovers per game, but their opponents are turning it over a little bit more than that, which is a good thing. But compared to Florida, they turn it over a good bit more than the Gators do. Had a caller off the air asked to analyze the recruiting classes between Clemson and Georgia for this year. And, you know, it's the biggest difference is Georgia signed more players, and thus they had the opportunity to sign better players or more better players, if you want to put it that way. You know, looking at their two classes, they're both spearheaded by heavily recruited players with offers from across the country. You know, Georgia, the consensus #1 team in the country, so it's pretty obvious that they signed across the board a ton of talent. I mean, they got Justin Fields at quarterback. Some say he's the best quarterback in the country. Some say it's Trevor Lawrence. They got Zamir White, the running back. Some say the best in the country when his knee's healthy, or one of the best. Their offensive line crop, unbelievably good. Cade Mays, Trey Hill, Warren Erickson, Jamari Sawyer, all big-time recruits in terms of the offers presented to them. And just across the board, Georgia did a great job. They finished up strong on Wednesday. Tyson Campbell, big-time defensive back pickup out of Fort Lauderdale. Quay Walker turned him from Alabama, guy from Cordele, Georgia, linebacker. So, you know, on and on it went for Georgia. They had a tremendous year. You know, Clemson, likewise, a lot of heavily recruited players, just not as many spots available as Georgia. So, you know, the Tigers had to slim down position by position. Instead of taking 4 or 5 offensive linemen, they could only take a couple. Instead of taking 3 or 4 receivers, they could only take a couple. But, you know, across the board, without exception, every player on Clemson signee list was a guy with multiple SEC, ACC, Power 5 type offers. So, again, a class very worthy of its ranking. The biggest difference between Clemson and Georgia, volume. The numbers. Yeah, Georgia could sign a lot more than Clemson did, but Clemson got its shiny quarterback. It didn't get a running back maybe with the reputation of Zamir White, but Lynn J. Dixon is a guy that had a 2,000-yard rushing season back at Taylor County in Butler, Georgia. So, you know, they both individually speaking at their positions have very good prospects in their respective classes.
One thing Dabo mentioned on Wednesday was the fact that they couldn't necessarily go after as many players because of the uncertainty that existed with some of the guys coming back, and they wanted to really watch that 85 scholarship number. They did not want to go up and try and bump up at that because they had such a small senior class, and they only had a couple of guys who left either via the NFL or via the transfer route. So they were kind of hard pressed when crunching the numbers that for the second year in a row they had to take kind of a smaller class. Next year they believe that they're going to take a full 25.
A couple of things I want to mention here, and we got a caller waiting. We'll get to it in a second. Today, Ray Tanner, speaking to the USC Board of Trustees, confirmed that he has spoken with Missouri AD Jim Sturck about Sturck's comments toward Dawn Staley. Conversation remains private. He told the media, Tanner did afterwards, quote, "I will not disclose any contents of the conversation. I'll just say that our commissioner is very concerned about what transpired. He called us together to have a meeting. We discussed it at length. I'm hoping in the near future there will be some sort of resolution." Staley confirmed today that she has not received an apology from Sturck. Asked if she was considering legal action, Staley said, quote, "That's to be announced at a later date." End of the quote. Tanner did say he thought a public apology was necessary. Here's the quote. "Let me make one thing perfectly clear. Jim Sturck and I are not at odds. We're colleagues in this league. We work well together. But I was clear My opinion is a public apology would be appropriate. I don't think he's offended by my statements. End of the quote. So that is where things stand with that situation that just won't seem to go away.
It really just sounds like two people having a match of just odds. Like, let's just put this to bed, man.
Well, he needs to come out and apologize. Unless he has evidence
he's
to
not
support
going to.
what he said.
He said he's not going to.
Then it's not going to go away. I mean, he should apologize. If you come out and falsely accuse somebody of something, especially something as harsh as what he accused Don Staley of doing and USC he should apologize.
I'm not saying he shouldn't apologize because I think what he said was wrong. But I also
how can you sit here and question Dabo Swinney and what you think he might tell his football players, yet you have an athletics director at Missouri on the record making false claims, and you don't think he should apologize?
I just said I didn't. I just said I think he should apologize. I literally just said that. Did you not hear me say that?
No,
I think he should apologize.
Yeah,
I did not.
He said he's not going to.
I said he's not going to. I didn't say I
well,
thought
you didn't
he shouldn't.
say. You didn't say.
I literally just said roll the tape back. I said I think he should apologize. I just said he wasn't going to. I said he's too hard-headed to apologize. I didn't say he shouldn't. I said he should to just put this to bed.
Did he say he should? I didn't
Pro
hear
just said he said.
I didn't hear the should part.
I said he should.
I heard you say that he won't. I didn't hear the should.
I said he won't. I didn't say he shouldn't. I said he should apologize. Maybe if you listened instead of not.
I'd rather not.
Instead of putting your nose down in your computer.
I think he heard that he's just trying to pull your chain.
I said he's not going to.
Also, this week, Clemson announced new contracts for the assistant coaches, and I think you alluded to this earlier.
$2 million man, Brent Venables.
Brent Venables, $2 million a year.
It'll go a long way.
Clemson's defensive coordinator.
It'll go a long way in Central South Carolina.
Look at some of the other big contracts. Tony Elliott's getting $850 a year as the co-offensive coordinator, as is Jeff Scott. They are the next highest paid members of the staff. Robbie Caldwell's getting $540 in his contract per year. Robbie Caldwell?
Yes.
Yeah.
That offensive line.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. Big money being paid to Clemson, and their coaches, based on the results, they deserve it. Quickly, let's go to Ryan in Hartsville. Ryan, welcome into Sports Talk.
Hey, Phil, how you doing?
Good.
All right. I'm a Clemson guy, and as far as Dabo having any agenda, as far as keeping players, I don't think he has an agenda. And the thing is, I can go back to the 2016 draft, and Shaq Lawson, Kevin Dodd, Mackenzie Alexander, J-Ron Curse. They could have all stayed, but they went to the draft, and they would have won a national championship the next year if they would have came back. So, I mean, yeah, I understand Will's point. Yeah, I mean, it benefits Dabo if they come back, but I don't think he has an agenda to get them back. And I'll hang up and listen.
Well, I will say this, too. Now, remember, they lost Ray McLeod, Deion Kane. They're all leaving towards the draft. I don't know what their draft report was from the general managers. The mock draft people aren't, they're certainly not first round type guys.
I think they want it out.
Yeah,
honestly.
Well, sometimes as a head coach or a coaching staff, you want a player to leave, and you might not advise him as strongly to stay if he doesn't get the report from the NFL that indicates he's going to be a first-round pick. He's going to be a second or third-round pick. You might suggest to him, well, you might just want to go ahead and pursue your NFL career.
I think with those two guys, you see where Clemson's wide receiver crop is. You got T. Higgins coming up. You've got Amari Rodgers coming up. You've got guys who you recruited coming up. I mean, there are going to be a lot of balls fought for when it comes to the wide receiving core. So those two guys probably better suited to try themselves out in the NFL because they're NFL-built bodies. I'm saying that there's probably more snaps, though, to go around for the defensive line because of those three guys and their level of talent.
Okay.
What? Oh,
I was listening. I was making sure.
Are you listening this time?
I wanted to make sure I listened.
Something different.
And it's a premium to have defensive linemen with all these teams trying to play 90, 100 snaps a game.
Yep.
Those guys run out of gas quickly.
All right. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Our website tomorrow, SportsTalkSC.com from the CLA, USC in Florida. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you Monday.
Be blessed.